Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Beyond the Label podcast. So, here with me is my longtime friend, Jero Wong.
Hello.
We're in Jero's studio right now. He is a musician from Hong Kong. He does all sort of music-related things. He's a guitarist. He's a band leader. He mixes music. He produces music. He writes music, anything related to that. So, Jero, can you tell us a little bit just about what you do?
Okay. Well, I first and foremost, I guess I'm the vocalist and guitarist of the Lemon Ones, local band in Hong Kong. But I do a lot of things. Like I also play guitar for a band called Flying Daggers, as well as produce for local upcoming artist called Sophia Nyberg, and I also do all the mixing and producing behind the scenes for all the songs. I think mainly because it's cheaper to do it yourself. Because every time you go out, you have to pay I know, a lot of money, and especially in this kind of climate, I think it's better to figure it out yourself. Despite not being as trained as maybe some professionals, I feel like if I were in control of my sound in Hong Kong, it'll be more beneficial than letting someone else do it.
What do you think is like the hardest thing of basically being a musician in Hong Kong? I'm pretty sure like all of you watching, if you were to go and tell people as a kid that you want to be like a musician, people would probably say that's just a hobby. So what is like what is the main difficulty about what you're doing now?
The main difficulty, obviously, with the new live show ban again, a lot of musicians, especially when Spotify is the main source of income if you release music, it doesn't really pay you much. Okay. So actually, live shows provide the most income if you're a musician. But with it, being banned, then a lot of musicians obviously don't get income. And I think if I was like back when I was a kid and I was trying to think about, getting into music, I would not have imagined that I'd be doing music in this kind of world.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's the dream. I'm doing music, but I have to play a live show with a mask on, you know? It's very, especially singing as well, because when you breathe, like you push in a lot of air out, and you have to take a lot of air in, and you breathe, and your mask like suffocates you, like you suck it in. So I mean that's a big challenge, especially for a less experienced singer, I suppose, especially with breathing techniques and stuff. But I think as well as like in the beginning when I first started in 2018, I kind of felt very like small. Because like you see your friends doing doing their jobs or like starting their careers in something else, and then there you are just starting from like zero, like ground zero, scratch, and you don't even know how to maybe produce music, how to mix music, and back then I didn't even have a band, so I had to find everyone like over time. And starting from scratch, I think is hard because back then I was studying LPC actually. I used to be a law student.
Yeah, exactly.
As you would know. And I studied LPC for one like term, and I realized that wasn't for me. So I dropped out. So I actually dropped out from LPC to do something from scratch. Like it was a very strange moment in time, I think, for me.
Yeah, because I feel like, especially in Hong Kong, people are so competitive since a really young age. So say if, like, people who I know who does, say, like, classical music, they've been trained all their lives. Yeah, like, such a different path that you're taking, that you were going to become a lawyer.
Yeah. Well, I did play guitar when I was like since I was 13.
Okay.
So that was like the only thing that I was the only thing that I was familiar with. And with that kind of knowledge, I just kind of went like, okay, I'm going to expand on this. I can't just play guitar. I'm going to do everything else, or else it's not possible for me to do anything in Hong Kong, I think. There's a point that I wanted to mention is that I had to manage my parents' expectations, right? That's a very common thing, especially for Asian cultures.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure all of you listening are just wondering, how can someone who's a law student suddenly drop out and just basically start all of this?
Start all of it from scratch.
Yeah, from scratch.
Yeah, so I think if you rewind back a bit further, there's this kind of small philosophy that I have when dealing with parents. It's like, how do you operate in a world where you need to make them happy? Or no, not make them happy, but make yourself feel happy that, oh, I am not being like a bad child to you, first and foremost. And for me to kind of come to an answer with that is that you have to understand what your parents think, what your parents believe, what they value, and you have to not say it, but you have to understand it to a T. So you need to feel it so deeply that as if you were the parent. And you know, how would you feel if your kid was to say that or do something like that? And you have to understand it to such a point where, okay, even if I understood everything that we've, had to do to get to this point, like go through law. I actually did finish law uni though. It's the postgraduate course that I had to drop out of. So I understood how they felt, and obviously I did the whole law thing. And they also had to understand that I was a terrible law student. Like, I'm good at science, I'm good at psychology, I'm good at maths, but law does not it does not click in my brain. Like, I don't see the world at all in the kind of legal way. Like, they have this very specific way of, like, I don't understand. I can't even explain it. But for 3 years, they had to deal with, like, why is my son so bad all of a sudden, like, at studying? Like, is he stupid or something? But, I mean, I did well in high school to get into, to studying law. But through the 3 years, I think my parents, like, slowly, like, understood. And especially with the final blow with the postgraduate course, which was, like, terrible. They then sort of like, oh, okay, well, I think this really isn't for you. What else do you have? And then I was like, oh, I can't even apply to like a business job because they prefer business degrees over law degrees because law is too specific anyway. I was like, well, there's one thing I'm still kind of good at. It's music. So that's how I started. And they were like, okay, if you're going to do it, then go all in, We'll let you do everything that you need to do for it. And I think this is very important because once that happened, like your parents and your kind of psyche aligned, then you can actually like carry on without this kind of like burden. Because I feel like as humans, we have this kind of like evolutionary thing where we look to our parents for some kind of acceptance,
For sure.
Right? Everyone has that, but it's evolutionary because you need the parent to survive or their parent, the parents' guidance to survive because that's how it's been working for like a million years. So with that sorted out, I found that it was actually a lot more powerful because the recent band competition that we were champions of.
They were champions. I think it was the Hong Kong Youth Band competition.
We actually applied it for like 3 years and we didn't even get into the finals.
And
but
now you won.
The one time we got into the finals, we won. Like, we were first place. Well, anyway, you can cut this out if you want. This is like boasting. But that night on the finals, it was their first time seeing me live.
So your parents were there.
Both of them were there. And they were there to see me live. And it was the first time I'm singing in front of them. They've seen me play guitar before. And they've seen me like do well with guitar. They're like, okay, yeah, I understand. But I had to sing in front of them. And there was some kind of like, I don't know, like universal force or magic when your parents and you are kind of like on the same track and you're kind of like fighting for the same thing. I don't know. Then something magical happens where I actually won Best Vocalist as well that night.
Wow.
And actually I've been told that I was a bad singer like all my like teenage years in high
all
school.
the years that I've known you, I've never heard you sing.
Right?
Not even in karaoke, no.
Yeah, exactly. Not even in karaoke. But there's something like magical about it. And I've got a really good case study about this kind of phenomenon is Billie Eilish.
Okay.
When she and her brother were, I know, younger, and they were like producing their little record in the bedroom. If they had one rule in the house, and it was if they were making music, the parents weren't allowed to tell them to like stop or go to sleep or do anything. When they were doing music, it was serious. They had to let them finish it before they go to bed or before they go eat or something. And that's like the parents and, you know, aligning with them. So it's very important to get that straight, I feel like, if you want to like pursue something.
Yeah.
Because I can imagine like if I was playing guitar at like 1 a.m. and I hadn't like, I don't know, I had to do an exam.
Like go to school, yeah.
Right, go to school. I back then I wasn't allowed. I had to play like the electric guitar unplugged secretly, just like, and then I'd hear footsteps and I'll quickly put it back on the stand and I'll sit back on my table.
Yes.
Right, but you know, like I had to do that. But imagine if I could just do it freely during high school. I might even, you know, be a different player today.
Of course.
But I mean, now it's okay. At least they're aligned now after 20-something years.
But I mean, that's super powerful. That I do think a lot of us, when we talk about, you know, us wanting to do our own thing, obviously we are restrained by our parents because obviously like their financial support and that they can not allow us to do certain things, especially when we're young, right? So it's good that, you know, you started off really doing what they wanted you to go into law and to show them that, okay, I've done this, but this is really not for me. I think that's even like empowering for yourself as well, that you completed that degree and now you can go around and be like, you have a law degree.
Yes. I mean, I sometimes wear the graduation ring to my shows as well.
I've seen that.
Yeah. But I mean, the law degree thing is also kind of like, this is probably a bad analogy, but the Black Swan event, it's kind of like you need the Black Swan event. It's like people always thought swans were all white.
Yeah.
And this is a really bad analogy. You might want to cut this, but listen, hear me out. Hear me out. So people used to think swans were all white.
Yeah.
But when they found one black swan, it was like, what? Everything that we believed was wrong.
Yeah.
So it was kind of that idea, but applied to especially my dad. He's a lawyer himself. So he has this like white swan idea. Like, my son is gonna be a lawyer one day. I'm gonna make him do all this and it's gonna all work out. When it actually happens in reality in front of you. I think that was important for him to understand as well. If I never tried it, I just went, I'm gonna do music, then I don't think I would have had the support, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. I really do think, especially with Asian parents, I feel like they really like to see effort. They like to see that you studied, you know, you pulled an all-nighter. No matter like what the results are, they need to see you like grinding so hard. You go into those like tutor classes that, at least for me, that's what I had to go through. So yeah, I think I'm really happy for you as a friend. And I want to know more about like the motivation when you had to first start your music business, because obviously you didn't go to music school, you didn't have the kind of resources that other people might have had. So what was the main like motivation or anything that you had to get through by yourself in order to build what you have now?
Yes. Good question. Good question, Leanne. No, okay. Okay, I'm going to start my question. That's a very good question, though. I do want to say. Yeah. When I first started, I had like a very, I guess, low resolution vision of what I want to achieve. And it's kind of like, oh yeah, I have this new sound, new style idea that I've actually been influenced by for a long time. I'm actually gonna put that into, I'm gonna put that into use. Like I've been listening to all this music. I've been learning. I've been watching, like hundreds of YouTube videos of Arctic Monkeys. Yeah. So. And I also had like this kind of like self-belief because when you maybe when you want to choose to do something, like you can choose to do anything. You can choose to be a really good badminton player, or if you want to, do a Rubik's cube, or you want to see how fast you can do a Rubik's cube. There's like a process to getting to that point of like, oh yeah, I'm really good at this.
Yeah.
And you feel it. You can feel, oh, today I'm not that good at badminton. But you understand what it's like to be good at something. You feel it. So I had that for guitar. I had that for maybe even getting into uni when I studied for my exams. Like I had like this kind of like, how do I say it? It's like
proof from before.
No, it's kind of like a physical and mental feeling. Like you feel like, oh yeah, I got this. I'm good enough to do this.
Okay.
So for me, it was when I played my first ever guitar performance. I played a guitar solo. I didn't have a band. I just stood alone and played a guitar solo. And it was actually for a talent show. And then I won first place as well when I was like 14.
Wow.
Yeah, but that was like a kind of like a turning point or something, because you feel, oh, for me to achieve this result, I would have had to done this many hours. I would have had to feel like this on the night. I would have to maybe the technique of playing that song or the technique of doing whatever you're doing has to be so on point that you just can't mess up. If I was blindfolded, I probably could have played that solo. Like
Wow.
That back then.
Yeah.
But maybe now I can't because I haven't played it in a long time. But there's this kind of like crystallization. Like there is this this level that you have to attain to achieve something.
Yeah.
So I understood that, and I was like, okay, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna have to do the same thing, but like in 10 different areas. Like I have to be that good at mixing. I have to be that good at singing. I have to be that good at songwriting. I had to everything had to be like, oh yeah, I have this feeling of how the band should feel when you play a song well. You need to achieve the same thing. And I think I impose that onto my bandmates a lot. Like I think they're okay with me being kind of bossy sometimes, but because they probably like feel, oh yeah, this guy actually knows what it's like.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe, I don't know, for viewers listening to me go on about this, like you just pick something that you want to be good at. There's a guy called Yannick Sinner. He's a tennis player. He's an upcoming like really good tennis player, and he all of a sudden just decided, I just want to be a professional tennis player. He didn't actually like practice since he was a kid.
I didn't know this. I need to look this up.
Yeah, this is just a guy. I mean, it's just my case study. But he started when he was like 19.
Yeah.
And he's now playing like the big guys because he decided, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it really well. So it's kind of that feeling. I mean, it doesn't. Maybe you don't want to do it for like something too important because you might feel discouraged and you might even quit because it's too important. I can't mess up.
Yeah.
But maybe start small. Like I would even say like play with a yo-yo or something. No, honestly, like when you do like a trick on a yo-yo And when you nail that trick, or I have a friend that plays kendama.
What's that?
There's another band that we're friends with called Friday Kendama Club. And we actually don't play music. We just go over and play kendama. It's like those Japanese wooden toys.
Like a toy,
Yeah, but there's tricks, right? You can, for you to nail a trick that is like probably like quite hard maybe, you need practice. You need to feel, oh yeah, I am good at this trick now. There's a moment when you kind of feel it, right?
Yeah.
And that moment can be applied to anything. You can do anything you want in life.
Yes.
If you put enough hours in it and achieve that feeling. But most people don't know. They're just like, oh, I'm going to put 10,000 hours. But you put 10,000 hours and then what? Like you don't know what you're meant to feel at the end of the day. So I feel like it's important to kind of maybe find a moment in time when you're like, oh my God, I was really good at this. And then kind of apply that into something else.
I really like how you said start small, because I feel like it can definitely be baby steps. Like I also talked with a therapist friend the other day, and he was just saying, like, do one minor thing that scares you to help you build your confidence.
I mean, yes, that's kind of like because I used to be really scared at singing as well, right? That was my nightmare fuel, singing in front of people, because I had people tell me that I was bad for like many years. But I mean, kind of similar to what you were thinking about, but the point I was trying to make is I applied the same concept I had on guitar. Like I had to put this many hours in it. I had to feel this confident about singing this one song only, not even like other songs, just this one song. And kind of like just interpret it into vocals. There's like muscles and there's like kind of this mentality you have to have behind it.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just kind of like It's not like motivation, but it's kind of like self-improvement.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of strange. It's kind of unorthodox, kind of like how I'm doing music as well. It's a bit unorthodox.
But I think because we come from such traditional Asian families, we've never learned how to, basically what you said, like gain confidence or to develop ourselves in areas that weren't already set in stone for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you because the past that's always like it's like paved out, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But by our parents. So I think we really need to learn by ourselves, especially in our generation, if we want to do something that is not the typical lawyer, doctor, accountant, things like that. But it is possible. Like we've seen so many people doing things already. There really is possibility everywhere.
I think it's also like tapping into what you're like confident in. So maybe a lot of the people who do YouTube or, the beauty kind of thing, they are confident in speaking and their looks, but then the rest of that kind of like they have to learn. But I mean, there's you gotta kind of like ground yourself to one thing. Like, oh, I know I'm good enough at this thing.
Yeah.
Oh, and I think I know I'm gonna go off on another rant now.
Please do.
Okay. Well, so there's a guy called Jordan Peterson that I'm like very influenced by. I draw a lot of references to like, many things. But this particular guy is like a psychologist, you can say. And he said, if you end up in a job that you aren't like wired for, like, because humans are wired for many things, right? Some people are good at speaking. Other people are introverts, if you're in a job that you're not wired for, there are more people that are going to suffer than the people that you're going to help. Like if you're a doctor, but you're not wired to think like a doctor, you're wired to, because every case is different. For example, but you're the type that is like, oh, I'm going to look at the book and that's it. I can't change. My mind is set. Imagine if you're really bad at your job and the amount of people that you affect, like your colleagues, your clients, your family.
If you're a doctor, you affect so many people.
I apply this to law, actually. I imagine myself as a lawyer, and being the worst lawyer in the world, I can imagine like the harm that it can do than, the good, right? With that in mind, I felt like, if you feel like you're forced into the path that you're not comfortable with, it's not like, oh, I'm gonna grind it out and my parents will be happy, or like, I'm gonna grind it out and I'll find out, hey, it's gonna be good someday. I don't think it will be, and I think along the way you also mess up a lot of things. I mean, this sounds a little negative, but this is kind of like how I see it. I would then want to say that this is now your chance, especially if you're young, to get off that path.
Yeah.
And try something that you actually know. Oh, you know what? If I do this, I'm actually going to be good at it. I'm actually going to help more people than I kind of harm. Yeah, so the whole traditional way of thinking is only in place because back then there weren't many people that had opportunities to go on, be a doctor.
Yeah.
Maybe now everyone can, because all you have to do is kind of just go through that system, right?
Yeah.
In the past, the threshold was much higher.
Yeah. I also I read this article that Jay Shetty wrote. He's also a spiritual guru. He said that when everyone find their purpose and they actually go into what they're supposed to do, there's actually no competition at all, because everyone will be good at what they do. And since everyone is unique, like all of us will just hone into our own uniqueness and basically help each other out in the best possible way. Yeah. So I really believe in that. And I want to add on that, because I started out not really knowing what I'm supposed to do, just really trying to do what was cool, like, posting photos on Instagram, things like that, not really even knowing why I wanted to do that. But I think in the process, I slowly found out, of course, through like talking to people, through being lost for some periods of time, I realized the reason why I somewhat like share on social media is because I like to like communicate with people and share what I believe in, like what I'm doing now. So it's totally okay to like just take time to figure out what you like.
And it's also important to do first, then learn, instead of learning first, then do, because there's unlimited amount of things that you can learn before you go ahead and do something. But when you do something, you figure out, oh, you know what, I've been getting this right the whole time. But when you find out you're doing something wrong, it's like instant. I am 100% sure this is wrong. I will not do it again.
Yes.
This level of certainty is actually very important, because if you kind of, maybe if I was good at something and I never make a mistake, I'll probably be more scared, because by the time I make one, it's going to be like, what? Like this is, oh my God, this is gonna ruin my career or something. That's probably worse than making mistakes and knowing for a fact that this is something you shouldn't do, moving on to something important. Because maybe something less important is like a mistake. It's like, oh God, I'm a bit silly, right?
Yeah.
But then with this information, you then take on larger things with more certainty.
Yeah.
Like you are sure, oh yeah, I didn't get into this competition because of these reasons. I am now in the finals. I'm covered. I'm sure that we're not gonna do these things. This time it's gonna be only the good things. And that kind of like, I think, helped us, I guess. Helped me especially to guide my my band.
I think that's actually really good to mention, because at the time when the mistake happened, sometimes we just feel like, oh my gosh, like this is so bad, it's gonna like ruin us, but usually it doesn't. And I think it's just good that you pointed out those mistakes are really just lessons for you to take, and yeah, you don't get into this competition, whatever, just improve on whatever the judges said, right?
Before, when I talked about like choosing one thing to do, it's kind of in line with what Jordan Peterson says. He says, when you choose to do something in life, anything you do, it's a sacrifice. So every decision you make, the amount of time you invest is all part of that sacrifice. For example, when I chose to do this music thing, I sacrificed like the comfort of knowing, what's going to happen the next month. You never know if you're going to have a good show or a bad show. And you also sacrifice like family time because you invest all that energy and especially like money into this kind of project. And at the same time, I also reference Conor McGregor. He also talks about like how when he was fighting for the UFC, it's like, oh yeah, it's a sacrifice. I lost my mind to this game, which he actually did. I mean, if you look at him now, he's like a madman. But in that sacrifice, you kind of achieve something because that investment you put into yourself is so important, because if you invest in yourself, the amount of time, the amount of effort you might apply to a 9-to-5 job, for example, I think personally, the return that you gain from doing this, for example, in 10 years, in 5 years even, is far outweighs any like monetary investment.
How do you gain that confidence or build that confidence to know that you want to invest in yourself? Because I think that's one thing that I struggled with was, self-doubt. Everyone have them. So how do you push that self-doubt away and to really believe that you can do it? And after all those investments, you have a return after like 10 years.
Oh, actually, my first ever show coming back to Hong Kong, I played at the Wanch, and it wasn't even the current lineup, and I didn't know how to sing, and I didn't have any gear. I just had a guitar, and I played some songs. And I got booed by a drunk guy. Like, he literally, like, booed, like, wow. Oh, you're terrible. So, I mean, like, talk about, like, self-confidence in choosing what to be good at. The thing you chose literally got booed by someone.
Wow.
I think it's important to experience that. And I think what's more important is that you don't stop doing it, because the moment you stop doing it, then your investment stops. It's kind of like watching your stock like fall and then but cashing out. Yeah. Right? That's how you actually like have a net loss. So when you invest in yourself, I mean, you don't have to invest in yourself like all in. That's kind of a bit extreme, but if you do it bit by bit, consistently, yes, consistency is key. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, it's like Bruce Lee talking about, I don't fear the man who practiced 1,000 kicks, but I fear the man who practiced one kick 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Yes. So consistency. If you do the same thing over and over again, if you keep, for example, in music, I keep practicing. If you keep whatever you're pursuing, if you keep doing it every day, if you put 5 minutes into it every day, you already have like you'll already have a really big net gain by the end of 5 years. And who knows, maybe that 5 minutes ends up being like, 12 hours of your day,
Yeah.
But you'll never know, because unless you start doing it, and unless you start that sacrifice, that sacrificial moment. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do nothing else. I'm only going to think about this every day. I'm going to think about nothing else. Nothing is going to stop me. Even if someone boos me, even if I fail. And actually, it's part of the sacrifice when you make the mistake and suffer from it. That is, it feels really bad, right? Like when you mess up doing your thing. But that's part of it. That's part of the negative feelings that you have to experience. And visualization is also important, as Mr. Conor McGregor. We have a quote here that literally says, "We're not just here to take part; we're here to take over."
I'll show you guys like somewhere here.
Yeah. Like he visualizes, like I think he does it to a really high level. Like people might talk about meditation or whatever, but what he did by himself, I think he figured it out. Like he again crystallizing your vision, your how your future self will react in a moment. When you play a moment in your head a million times, especially when you, for example, if I were to imagine, me being champion, I don't imagine me, the lemon ones, oh, great. You know, I don't imagine that moment. I imagine, like, the practices. I imagine the changes I have to do. I imagine what it's like seeing my parents happy, what it's like seeing my parents sad, what it's like seeing, like, everything. I imagine everything. And it's kind of like a practice. If there's another study in psychology where a basketball team, two basketball teams, actually three, the control group. Yeah.
Yes.
So they were asked to practice for a month. So one team practiced like physically in the court for a month. The second team thought about practicing, did the drills in their head, but never did it physically. And the third team did nothing. They were told not to think about basketball for a whole month. And the team that thought about their drills but didn't do it, they did, like, I think by a small margin, they did nearly as well as the team that physically did it. I think there was almost no difference. It's only a small margin. So I think it's very important that you kind of visualize and practice. I wouldn't say practice, but just kind of run through these sequences in your head that, if I were to achieve this goal, maybe to be a YouTuber, I don't just imagine myself having 1 million views one day.
Yeah.
I imagine myself editing that video for 8 hours only to get 5 views.
Yes.
I imagine getting 1,000 dislikes for some reason because of something I said by accident. And it's my first mistake on YouTube, for example. You have to imagine that. And then, by the time you get to 1 million, it's probably like, oh yeah, I knew that was going to happen. Because you already did the whole, like, kind of suffering for it.
I really like how you talk about visualization this way, because from what I've heard before from different people, it has been quite extreme. Because some people will go and drill into, you have to prepare for the worst possible scenario. And those people, they really do only think about, like, what am I going to do when I have no views? What am I going to do when, like, nobody likes me? And that's what happened, because they attract that and they keep thinking about it. And the other ones are those who only visualize, say, you won the award, like all the glory and fame afterwards. But I really appreciate how you mentioned, you do have to visualize the process in between. And in a sense, I think the visualization makes it so much easier to do, because you already have that expectation that you need to put in all these work. Thank you so much for sharing all that with us today. And ending this episode, I'd like to ask you a question that I ask everyone here. Can you share with us one thing that you love about yourself?
One thing I love about myself is...
Take time.
No. One thing I love about myself is just how I know that I'm going to be better than I was. I will always be slightly better than I was, like, a year from now. And I take comfort in that.
I love that. I love that very much. I need to start saying that to myself as well. Yeah, I think we all need to, really.
I mean, have you ever looked at your pictures when you were, like, 2 years... I mean, just 2 years ago or something. Like, you would look at them and go like, oh my God, this guy knows nothing. He hasn't done enough. And then even further back, like in high school, oh my God, this guy really knows nothing. So I mean, with this kind of perspective on yourself, and you reverse engineer it and you look to yourself in the future, you know that you'll be better.
That is so true. That is so true. Well, thank you so much, Jero, for sharing with us today. Can you tell the audiences where they can find you or listen to your music?
Oh, you can find my band at @thelemonOnes_band. And I have a personal account. It's called Jero Wong_music. And I'm also in a band called Flying Daggers. And
I will link all of them down below. So thank you all so much for listening and watching with us today. I will go ahead and ask Jero more questions about his work in our exclusive video. So for everyone who wants to reach out, please do so by subscribing, commenting, and liking this. So I hope to see you guys soon.